Hello, everyone. Welcome back here. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love, and I'm Reverend Tomas Garza. Special shout out and thank you to all of the recent subscribers. There have been a number of you in the past couple days, and I really appreciate all of this and more, much more, in fact, than the subscriptions, the comments, the views, which I do appreciate. Don't get me wrong. What I appreciate more than anything else is your commitment to your spiritual path, your commitment to spirituality and your practice. The world is always running amok, and it's at high speed right now, isn't it? All we have to do is turn on our news feed and see all kinds of psychodrama. Bigger, faster, more dramatic than ever. Yes, ego land strikes again, right? It's running amok. And here you are, interested in something else completely. Not only is that rare in the world, it's also very needed. Isn't that what the world needs? People committed to spirituality, people committed to truth, people committed to awakening to the truth of who we really are and to undoing the ego. Yeah. So, whatever your background is, welcome. Whether you are a student of A Course in Miracles or not, welcome. You don't have to be. You could be just starting out or even just curious. And you could also be a very experienced student and practitioner of this material. And if you are, it's always good to check in with the basics, isn't it? There's always something that I say that you're meant to hear, which is why you're watching. And my job is simply to turn on the camera and the microphone and talk. Really. I don't know what I may say that you need to hear. So if I haven't said it yet, stick around. I'm going to, right? So where we are is we're in the preface. We're about ready to go into the text of A Course in Miracles. And there are three components here to the preface. Two of them were written by the scribe of the course, Helen Schucman herself. And the other part was written by the voice, the inner dictation process that dictated this course. In other words, Jesus, who later identified himself as the voice. Now, there is plenty of material available about the history of the course, including the most recent video. I've entitled it That Deep Inner Voice for reasons that you can watch and see. And as we go forward, I'll be referring to this deep inner voice all the time. But in that most recent video, I talk about section 1 here of the preface, which is how it came. That's what Helen titled it. So what is some of the basic history of the course? How did it come about? Today, we look at what it is. Some important stuff here for any spiritual practitioner. And if you're brand new to this material, let me simply stress, and if you're not brand new, let me stress again, because we all need to hear it many times. This is a self-study curriculum. It is not the basis of a cult. It's not the basis of a religion. And I'm not a leader or of any kind of a movement or anything. What you see before you is quite literally a projected image on your screen. My particular calling is to turn on the camera and microphone and share, to teach this course. Along the way, I'll offer some possibly hilariously funny anecdotes and some painful anecdotes from my own experience. This is the foundational centerpiece of my spiritual practice and study. I'm a student of this material right along with all of you. So what is this? There are three main components. One is the text, the other is a workbook for students, And then there is the manual for teachers. Now, the manual for teachers is written in question and answer form. So it's like a Q&A. It's an FAQ section, if you will. These are some of the common questions that people on this path may ask and really wonder about. It's very, very interesting. And that section, the manual for teachers, includes a clarification of terms, which is also very handy. So those are the main components. In addition, there are two supplements that we've covered recently here in this video series. One is called Psychotherapy, Purpose, Process, and Practice, and the other one is known as the Song of Prayer. But we've done everything on this video series except the text, and that's where we're going next. So what is that? The text is a bit more abstract in and of itself. And the workbook for students gives a 365 daily ideas. The idea is known as a lesson, and there are instructions for our understanding and practical application of that idea. So it's a practical workbook, and the text lays out the metaphysical foundations, right? It lays out the material. And the workbook is designed for us to apply that material. So they go hand in hand. They do. They go hand in hand because this is a self-study curriculum. It doesn't matter where you start. You could start with the workbook. You could start with the text. You could start with the manual for teachers. You could start by reading the clarification of terms. There's no wrong way to do it. The only real specific instruction that you'll encounter in terms of process is that when you get to the workbook, whether you start out with that or not, you could start somewhere else again. When you do that, it's one lesson per day, no more than that. Now, you do not, of course, have to complete this in 365 days, which may seem obvious, but it's a question that comes up. I have personally been through the workbook several times, and I would often pause. It usually took me, in fact, every time it has taken me more than a calendar year to do, because I have decided to repeat certain lessons. Some of them sit with me, and I want to work with that day's idea a little bit more. And if you're called to do that, by all means, please do. Now, a funny story for those of you who may be just starting out, the workbook is a real interesting one because people get interested in it. And then about 20, 25 lessons in, if that, people leave it frequently and come back to it later, maybe. Right. I had the experience the first time I went through it of reading the material, reading the day's idea, and practicing it first thing in the morning, because that's part of my daily routine. Is I take this coffee, meditation, journaling. Yeah, I'm one of those creatures of habit, and my 2 to 3 hour morning routine is sacrosanct, and I don't schedule anything for after or for, well, before 9 a.m. Let's just say I don't schedule anything super early so I can set the tone for my day. Now, when I first started the workbook, I would do the suggested practice, read it, think about it, contemplate it first thing in the morning. And then there were many days where life swept me away and I didn't think about it again at all until the night as I was going to bed, or sometimes the following day. And there were instances where, yeah, I just completely forgot about it. And what I would do is either I would go on or I would just repeat that idea the following day. So if that's you, no problem, right? I've done the workbook a few times and been through the text a few times. Again, this is the foundational centerpiece of my own spirituality. Here's something very important about it is that you don't have to adopt this as the cornerstone, so to speak, the foundational centerpiece, the basis of your practice. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's a self-study curriculum. I've chosen to do that. This text is complete in and of itself. It is most certainly a complete path. What many people do is they use this to augment their walk. So if you practice one of the traditional religions or a different type of spirituality, you can most certainly read this material. You can most certainly study and practice this material and gain significant insight into your own walk. It's very common. This occurs for many people because this is about practical application. It's about practice, not theory, not theology. So this is not getting into a theological debate. It's not attacking anyone. Spirituality is about practical application, isn't it? I mean, really, it is. It is. It's about practical application, which is how we learn that what this material says is true. Now, this does also mean, if you're wondering, you must do this course. It is important to read and understand what it's saying, but it is far more important to put it into practice. That's how we discover that what Jesus is saying here, what we're being led and invited to do, is true. This is how it plays out in our experience, which it won't if we don't do it. So it's a constant invitation to practice. Now, if you've been at it for a while, you're almost certain to be a vastly, vastly different person, right? More forgiving, for sure. Yeah, more aware, for sure. More loving, joyful, exuberant, even calm, patient. Yeah. So I invite you, if you're feeling called, to take this deep dive. This course, of course, is only one part of what Jesus refers to as the universal course, a universal curriculum. What's that? It's awakening itself. It's the truth of who we are, and we're all awakening to that. That's what spirituality is. And there are many different traditions. There are many doors. There are many ways to approach spirituality, and the outward appearance of them is all that differs. The content is exactly the same. It is universal. No matter what tradition or traditions you practice, spirituality is universal. So, the universal theology is impossible, as they say right here. And of course, that's true, right? I mean, it's pretty useless to debate whose book is better. I mean, really, right? Yeah, that let's dispense with that and cut right to the chase. And forgive and practice and extend love. It's the universal experience that we're all headed toward. Now, what is this experience? It's the truth of who we are, which is beyond all words. It's beyond all concepts, and it can seem highly esoteric at first and highly inaccessible, but it's accessible. It's highly accessible. In fact, it's who we are. So what we do on the path, and particularly here, in A Course in Miracles is we remove all of the barriers that we ourselves have interposed between the experience of truth, as Jesus puts it, the awareness of love's presence in ourselves. We're removing the veils. We're walking through a fog bank or a passing cloud, if you will. This course aims to get us in touch with our inner teacher. In fact, at the end of the workbook, it's kind of the beginning, isn't it? Not the end. It's working with your inner teacher. And as we see here in practice, we forgive with our inner teacher. So we're not alone in this, even though spirituality here in the world is, of course, highly personal. That's why there's so many different traditions, because one tradition is going to speak to somebody, and one tradition is going to speak to you, and another one's going to speak to your neighbor, and there are plenty of people that don't look like they're interested in any of them, right? Including some of our family members who think we're nuts. Hell, let them think whatever they want, right? Let them think whatever they want. Yeah, so this is what it is. As always, I welcome your questions and comments. They're most welcome here. And this is something that I really, really enjoy doing. So I'm happy to interact with you. The red arrow here is a subscription button. So if you'd like to subscribe, definitely please do. I'd love to have you. And I will see you again on the next video. Thanks so much, as always, guys, for joining me.